Hey guys, it's Tamara K. Andersen. Are you feeling pretty worn out dealing with the many stressors in your life? Might I recommend Daily Essential Nutrients by Hardy Nutritionals? These amazing micronutrient vitamins have helped my family with anxiety, depression, ADHD, and even autism. I highly recommend you check them out at gethardy.com.
Yes.
I remember the doctor coming in saying we have some good news and we have some not so good news. The good news is we know exactly why this is happening. The not so good news is that your son has tuberous sclerosis. At the moment your heart just sinks. Here is something that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
And we remember him saying, like, I'm going to get you some more information, but as I leave here, the one thing I don't want you to do is to Google it.
Welcome to Stories of Hope in Hard Times, the show that explores how people endure and even thrive in difficult times, all with God's help. I'm your host, Tamara K. Andersen. Join me on a journey to find inspiring stories of hope and wisdom learned in life's hardest moments. Today, I'm pleased to present an accomplished author, speaker, coach, and mentor. She is the wife and mother of 3 amazing children. Having a special needs child has taught her the critical importance of setting up her world to fit the current expectations of her family over those delivered by the expectations of others. For most of us, life does not go as planned, and it didn't for my guest today and her husband. In less than 36 hours, their seemingly normal life was turned upside down when their oldest son, Dexter, was diagnosed with tuberous sclerosis complex, epilepsy, and then 4 years later with autism. Her experience created a deep desire to redefine what normal looks like in her own life and instilled in her a passion to help others redefine normal for themselves. She is passionate about spreading her message and encouraging families to break free of external expectations and instead find the balance in life. I am pleased to present Wendy Andersen. Wendy, are you ready to share your story of hope?
I am. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. So you say you had a normal life before your son was diagnosed. Take me back and tell me a little bit what that looked like.
Yes, yeah. So, my husband and I had been married for 8 years before we had children,
Mm-hmm.
and we had our son Dexter. And when he was just 6 months old, so it was our first child, all the excitements, the joys of having your first child. We were living it, we were loving it. And then when he was 6 months old, my mother-in-law was taking care of him while I was working and my husband was in school at the time. And I got a call from her one day and she said, I need you to come home. I think something's wrong. I said, well, okay, obviously I'll be there right away. And so I got home and my son was taking a nap. And I'm like, well, right now there's nothing wrong. And he woke up, and then shortly after that, I saw exactly what she was talking about, and that his little head was kind of bobbing up and down rhythmically, and occasionally his left arm would straighten. And I just thought, I think he's having seizures.
Wow.
It's,
Now, had you seen someone have a seizure before? Is that how you were able to identify that?
Yeah, I've had people have seen people have seizures before. Also, my husband's in the medical community, and I just have a lot of that knowledge throughout my experience. And so I called the pediatrician, and they said, you know what, bring him in right away. And I would say, fortunately, he had one of the episodes in the office right in front of her.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, and it was like a Friday afternoon about 3:30.
Uh-huh.
And she got us in, and I remember her looking at me and saying, you know what, we can wait for months to get him in with a specialist, or I can just send you right to Children's right now and we'll check him in for inpatient. And
Wow.
so we got in the car and we drove over to our children's hospital and we checked in for inpatient. And that's when, it was right then is really when life changed.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So tell me how long did it take for them to give him an official diagnosis?
Yeah, from there, it was about 36 hours. From the
Wow.
minute we checked into the hospital, he was having the type of seizure called infantile spasms, which is the most debilitating type of seizures in a child.
Oh, wow.
And so, of course, the EEGs, and then they did an MRI. They did all the things, they did all the tests.
Mm,
And we distinctly remember, there are points in your life when you're like, you don't forget these things.
yes.
I remember the doctor coming in saying, we have some good news and we have some not so good news. The good news is we know exactly why this is happening. The
Mm.
not so good news is that your son has tuberous sclerosis.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, at that moment, your heart just sinks. Here is something that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
And, 1 in 6,000 children are diagnosed with this. And we remember him saying, like, I'm going to get you some more information. We're going to do these other tests and different things. But as I leave here, the one thing I don't want you to do is to Google it.
Well, why not? That's
Oh,
what I
let's
want
see.
to do.
Yeah, so of course, the minute he walked out the door, my husband and I are both on computers and phones and trying to figure out what the heck did he just say?
What did he say it
So,
was called again? How do you
yeah,
think I
exactly.
spell that?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
So,
gosh. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I understand that, having a
Mhm.
child diagnosed. What were the emotions going through your mind as you sneakily read about tuberous?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for us was that, we are going to get all of the information that we can. We are going to find all of the people that we need to, and we are going to do everything in our power to take care of him. And
Mm.
so we really, we didn't I guess we didn't give ourselves the opportunity to kind of mope about it. We went right into, okay, we've got to learn as much as we can and we got to help figure this out. We've got to find the people to help us figure it out. Because, it's our responsibility to help take care of him. And
Yes.
so that was kind of our first rush of emotions and things that went through it. And fortunately, and we've been very grateful that a medicine had just been approved by the FDA 2 months prior to his diagnosis. That once we finally got all the paperwork and everything done, and it arrived, stopped these infantile spasms within one dose.
Wow. That is
Yes.
a miracle.
Yeah, yeah. And when we need something, it's there. And so, that's what we're very grateful for along this journey.
That is amazing. So, why don't you give us like a brief synopsis of what tuberous sclerosis complex is,
Yeah.
TSC?
TSC. Yeah, so it's basically a condition where non-cancerous tumors can develop anywhere throughout the body, and
Mm,
literally anywhere throughout the body. So as we found out with him, he obviously had him in his brain,
mm.
which that's what was causing the seizures, and he also had him in his heart. When his
Oh
heart, they're
my.
called rhabdomyomas. Fortunately, in his heart, they were not causing any problems. The ones in the heart, as they grow as a child, they shrink and go away.
Oh,
But that's the only organ that happens with.
well, that's a
So,
blessing. I mean,
yes,
because you
it
kind
was.
of need your heart to live.
Yes, yeah, yep. So those have shrunk and gone away. He does have the tubers, they're called tubers in his brain. And then when he was about 2.5 years old, he was diagnosed with a SEGA, which is another type of tumor in the brain, but a SEGA actually grows.
Oh,
And so about 25% of kids with TSC develop SEGAs. But as we said, when we've needed something, there's been a medicine that was there. Again, a medicine had been approved by the FDA to actually shrink the SEGAs. And so,
really?
yep. So within 6 months of us starting him on that medication, which it is a daily chemo, our options were brain surgery, or this medicine. And if they didn't get 100% of the tumor, it would grow back. And
Oh
so
my
we would end
word.
up on the medicine anyways. So we said, let's try the medicine. And
Yeah.
within 6 months, it had shrunk it in half.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, again, very, very grateful and thankful.
Wow. Miracle
So
after miracle. That's
yes,
amazing.
yeah,
So the tubers cause the epilepsy. Is that how that works?
yep, yep.
But I remember you told me also that there's a very high percentage of kids diagnosed with TSC who are also diagnosed with autism.
Autism, yes. Yeah, there's a 50%.
50%.
50% of kids with tuberous sclerosis will also be diagnosed with autism. And actually, a lot of the a lot of the autism studies are done on kids with tuberous sclerosis because of the high probability, but also kids with tuberous sclerosis don't present as classically
Mm,
as other children. So it gives a different perspective from it also.
very
So
cool.
yeah.
Wow. So were what were some of the symptoms you were seeing that made you wonder if he was going to present autism as a diagnosis?
Yeah, just as he was growing up and developing, he was delayed in his speech.
Mhm.
It was very clear that he could understand what we were saying to him, but then he could not verbalize it back to us necessarily.
Right.
And so that did pose some frustrations, but we worked with him on language and sign and things. Um, it was sensitivity to noise, which that is kind of one of the more classic ones.
Yes.
He um, he has a love for letters. Like he knew his alphabet at 18 months. We could
Yeah.
show him a flashcard and he could verbalize that to us. But it wasn't things like there. Well, people would say, but he has great eye contact, and he's very loving, and he loves to give hugs, and so kind of that side of the classic diagnosis, he was not very classic at all, and
Right.
so that too kind of led to the delay of things.
Mhm.
And so it was just, kind of little things that were like, finally, we're like, yeah, I think let's go for an evaluation with a neuropsych. And so
Mhm.
that's when we got the level 1 autism diagnosis when he was 4.5, right before kindergarten.
Right, right. That it's amazing that you've been able to get the help and the diagnosis that you need
Yes.
at the time.
Hmm.
That's fantastic. And my son was probably 4 when we finally got him diagnosed with autism
Mm.
as well. So
Hmm.
I understand a lot of those same emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
Um, you you talked to me a little bit about before we started our podcast about making a choice
Hmm.
when the initial diagnosis of tuberous sclerosis was pronounced. Would you mind talking me through that choice that you and your husband made?
Yeah, absolutely. It was another kind of defining moment in the quick little 36 hours of this
Mhm.
diagnosis. We both are feverishly like looking at our computers, trying to find out all this information, absorb as much as we can. And at one point, it was almost simultaneously, we both just shut our computers down and we looked at each other and we just said, we have a choice
Mm,
and we're going to make this right now. And we have a choice that we can lay down and stay down because we now have a child with a very rare condition that at the time we didn't know how things would go, that could potentially be extremely debilitating. Or we're going to make the choice that we're going to rise up, love him as we have been doing already, and like we know to do, and do everything in our power that we can to help him and get the best services and find the best doctors. And it was really we're making that choice right now, and there's no turning back.
mm.
And so obviously we see what choice we made. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that is fantastic, and I think that that helped you progress through the grief process probably more quickly than a typical
it
parent,
did. It
don't you
really
think?
did. Yes, it really did. So when we think about it, like there were times where we were like, we have no idea what life is going to look like for him, no idea for life is going to look like for us. So it's not to say that we didn't have those grieving times,
Mhm.
but it's a very faint memory. I can't remember many of those times
Mm.
that we did kind of go through that, and we attribute it to like, we made this decision and we're going with it,
Mhm.
and so keep going and move through that. There are absolutely times that we have been sad, but we also, that other choices that we were going to choose to be in gratitude. And it was after that weekend I carried around a little notebook that was my gratitude journal, and I put in my phone 3 times a day, what are you grateful for? It comes in at 10, 2, and 6 throughout the day. And every day I would, my reminder would come in and I would pull my notebook out and I would write it down. And then if I couldn't find something I was grateful for, I'd go back and look and find something. So, because there are those hard days where it's like, oh, I
Mhm.
have no idea. But yeah, really just making that choice that we were going to love our life and do everything we can. And then being so grateful for, like I said, every time we need something, there's a medicine that's been evolved, or we have phenomenal doctors out of Cincinnati. I mean, we fly to Cincinnati tomorrow to go meet with his team there. And so it's just, just grateful for the impact that honestly he's having in our lives.
Yeah, they teach you so much, don't they?
So much. Absolutely. I'm like, he's taught us more than I could ever have imagined about life.
I know, I know.
Mhm.
I feel very similarly.
Mhm.
So you talk about some of the lessons you learned it, and you teach these principles as you speak. I know
Mhm.
that talk about loving,
Mhm.
embracing, and
Embracing.
redefining your normal life. Why don't you talk to me a
Yes.
little bit about these important lessons that you share?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So, with the love, like loving your life, I frequently look in, different support groups and online rooms and different things like that. And one of the things that I hear a lot is, I hate this, I hate that. And it honestly, like, just tears my heart out, and makes me very sad that I know it's not towards their child, but just
Mhm.
that negative energy that's going out into the world because of these thoughts, because of these things. And so it's really like just loving the life that you've been given, because you have one life to live,
Yeah.
and it does start with making that decision. Like we all have, situations that have come upon us that aren't necessarily how you viewed your ideal life.
Mhm.
But just saying, you know what, I'm gonna love the life that I have. And I feel like in general that what the world needs is more love.
I agree.
And so the more love that we can pour out towards our own families, to our friends, anybody in the support system, our school system, it honestly just makes things a lot easier.
Mhm.
You extend a lot less energy having that, that positive love, going around rather than on the other side of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what would you say if somebody asked you, with regards to this love, how can I just choose love when my life is so awful? What would you say to somebody like that?
Right, right. One of the first things I say, and it's hard to take at the beginning, is that life is always working for you. At
Mm.
the time, we may not understand it, and there's some really crappy things that can happen. Um, but if we go towards the gratitude, like, what is it? Why is this happening in our lives? And we may not be able to figure it out for a week, a month, a year, or whatever. But life is always working for us, and there is something for the greater good that's coming out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
And it is staying on the positive side of things. But again, that's a choice also.
Hmm. Yeah. I think there's a scripture in Romans that talks a little bit about that. And I remember a friend sharing it with me when I was a teenager. And I think it says something like, "In all things work together for your good,"
For your good.
or
Yep. For the greater.
and
Yeah.
I just remember thinking, you know what, that's true, and I've seen what you're teaching right here to be true, especially in my own life. I remember when my son was diagnosed with autism, I was devastated. It took me a while to make that
Mhm.
choice.
Right, right,
I kind of had
absolutely.
to cry for several months, but
Yeah. It happens.
I did come to the realization that he- my son did not change with the diagnosis. I could
Mhm.
still love him just as he was, and we were able to finally move on from there.
Well,
But
and look at the impact that your podcast and your book and all that you're doing.
I know,
Yeah,
and so it has dawned on me: would I be where I am today
right.
if not for that diagnosis?
Mhm.
No.
No.
Would I have learned the lessons I learned? No.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so what you're saying is absolutely true.
Mhm.
So perfect. That is beautiful that life is working for you. So
Mhm.
believe that, trust that
It's
God's
true.
got your back.
Yep, absolutely. Yes.
And
Yeah.
he can turn these hard things into good things. Learn from
Mhm.
them. Be grateful, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We may not always understand it, and that's okay. We don't
Yeah.
have to.
No.
Yeah.
Very good. So that's loving, embracing. I
Mhm.
guess it kind of flows into that,
It
doesn't
does
it?
really does flow into it. So, um, if you look at the definition of embrace,
Mhm.
it's not kind of the what I have a lot of Canadian friends and they joke about the American hug, where it's just kind of like one arm or two arms and giving a little pat on the back.
Right.
That's not really the definition of embracing. Like embracing is drawing in towards you, drawing close, holding on. And
Mhm.
so rather than kind of keeping our life at arm's distance, or other people at arm's distance, but really just embracing this life. Again, I'm going to live it. There's
Mm.
no reason that we need to keep our families hidden in our homes.
Mhm.
It's important that we get out there and we help them understand and help them to live life too, because
Mhm.
that's where the world is.
Yes.
So it's in the process of us really embracing this is my family, this is who my kids are, this is who I am, that you can go out and kind of live an unapologetic life.
Mhm.
I remember taking my son to a mall one time and I was with my sister and her family and it was overstimulating. They had this merry-go-round, they had these little I don't know, animal things running around. And all of a sudden the next thing I know, like he is on the ground, melting down by
Yep.
societal standards.
Yes.
And I just, I got down on the ground and I laid with him, which for other people probably seemed like 10 minutes, you know, but it was just a couple of minutes and eventually I was able to help him, get him up, and we went about throughout our day. And I remember I was telling a friend a story and she's like, "Oh my gosh, what did everyone else around you think?" And I just said, I honestly I have no idea if there was anybody else around me. I knew my sister and her children were there, but I don't know if there was anybody else there because it didn't matter. What
Mm.
mattered at that time is what my child needed. And so that's what I did. And I
Yeah.
do think, because I've embraced this is who he is, this
Mhm.
is who I am, and this is who our life is, that
Mhm.
I'm going to do what the situation warrants at that time.
Yeah. Quit worrying whatever
So,
everybody else is thinking about
yeah,
and quit comparing your
absolutely.
life to theirs and embrace
Right,
your normal. I
right.
love it.
Embrace it. Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh,
Hmm.
fantastic. All
Yeah.
right. Third principle, redefining your normal life.
Yeah, redefining normal. And it's kind of a joke around here, but I'm like, the only normal in our world is the normal setting on the washing machine, you know? Because I'm like, really? Like, that's it.
There you go.
Yeah. And I love to ask people, like, I'll flat out just ask them, like, define normal for me. Like,
Mm,
what can you explain to me what a normal family is?
mhm.
And that's exactly what happens. It gets silent, it gets quiet. So, we as individuals have created this concept of what normal looks like that's
Mhm.
not our family. Instead of thinking from the other perspective, my family is normal.
Right.
and this is who we are. But instead, it's that outside comparison. So,
Yeah.
really, just redefining normal and to know that your family is normal.
Mhm.
Normal for us is our son takes pills 3 times a day. And guess what? My 4-year-olds can take pills.
Wow, that's awesome.
you know yeah, it's like they've known that their brother had to go in the ER. This is just normal for us, and
Mhm.
it's okay that another family doesn't get it, they don't understand. I don't expect them to, quite frankly.
Mhm.
But this is what's normal for us. We drop our kid off, we walk in, we hold his hand. It's so.
Mhm.
And again, it kind of goes backwards from that. Redefine your normal, embrace it, and love the heck out of it,
There you
because
go.
this is who you are.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh,
And so much of your message resonates. Um, Wendy also has a book called Redefining Normal.
yes.
We
Yes.
had a friend that connected us on Facebook and said, "You two should meet,"
Yeah.
because you both have kids with autism and you both have books about basically redefining
Redefining
normal and
normal.
deciding what's normal for you. And so I'm like, "Oh yes, we totally need to meet." I'm
Yes.
just these are such
Mhm.
powerful principles that don't just apply to autism. They
Right.
apply to life,
Hmm.
however your life is,
Yeah,
right?
right. I have so many friends that are like, you know what, I don't get your life, but I totally understand what you're saying, and you've helped me so much
Yeah,
because this is my situation and this is my situation. And so
absolutely.
ultimately, I do speak a lot to families with special needs children, but it's universally applicable to all of us, not so many, all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Well, Wendy, we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, would you mind talking to us a little bit about some tips you would share for people in a similar situation, and then talk about maybe how God helped you through all this?
Absolutely.
Hey guys, this is Tamara K. Anderson. When my daughter was 8 years old, our family moved clear across the country, and this experience was a bit traumatic for my daughter. Within the next year, we saw her go from happy and vibrant to a child riddled with anxiety, and we couldn't even find a counselor that would talk to her because she was too young. At that point of desperation, I called a friend of mine who had had tremendous success with her son taking some micronutrient vitamins, which helped him pull out of childhood depression. I thought if they could do that for him, surely they could help my daughter with her anxiety. We started her on these amazing vitamins, and lo and behold, between that and an anxiety program I found online, she was able to come out of this shell that she had become and find her way back to being her normal, happy self. I'm a firm believer now that if your body gets the right nutrients, it can heal itself. And so I too have been taking daily essential nutrients from Hardy Nutritionals along with my other children to help with autism, ADHD, anxiety, and depression. These vitamins have been lifesavers for my family. If you too are struggling and need to get a powerful multivitamin for you or your family, I'm happy to recommend Daily Essential Nutrients by Hardy Nutritionals. And as a bonus, my listeners get a 10% discount when they order with the code HOPE10. That's HOPE 10, the number 10, 10. So go to gethardy.com and order Daily Essential Nutrients today.
And we're back. Today I'm speaking with Wendy Andersen, author, speaker, coach, and mentor. And she is the mother of three amazing children, one of whom has I've got to say this right, tuberous sclerosis complex, epilepsy, and autism. Wendy, you have given us some amazing tips so far about loving, embracing, and redefining your normal life. What other tips would you like to share with our audience? Perhaps someone in a similar situation. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think the first thing I always say is, you know what? Just remember to breathe. Just like
Right?
you got to have that oxygen number one. But I remember, and periodically there'll be times where I'm like, I haven't been breathing for a while.
Uh-huh.
So just holding your breath for days and weeks and months on end. So just remember to breathe.
Mm,
Yeah, it'll all work out. And, that really leads to make sure that you take time to work on your own mindset and your own beliefs.
mm,
Because this is really, I mean, it's huge. Whether you live in a powerful state, we call it a powerful state where that's all your love, joy, compassion, but that's the state where everything that you need is available to you. And
mm,
then we call the other state, which would be like our primal mindset or our suffering state,
mhm.
where we can go down that suffering rabbit hole very fast and stay down there for a long time. And that doesn't feel good to any of us.
No, it does not.
So being able to recognize when I'm having, kind of these negative thoughts and feelings coming up and not having judgment on them, but
Mhm.
then being able to go back to gratitude, come back to a powerful mindset, where that you can find the love, the joy, the peace, and all of the things in your life that do make you feel good. And
Wow. Yeah.
so, yeah, and it's really like just we call it feeling the feels, like just
Mm,
really like sitting with it and really starting to understand what you are feeling as a person, as an individual. So many
right.
times, we as moms, we're like the last thing that we think of taking care of.
Right? Oh,
Hmm.
that is such a common problem.
Yes, yes.
So, taking time to feel those emotions, recognize what they are, be patient
Hmm.
with yourself wherever you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, no judgment. Like it is,
Yeah.
you are where you are. It is what it is.
Mhm.
So,
And
and then how do I
move
get to the other
forward.
side?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you journal at all going through this process?
I journaled a little bit. Yeah. Um, like I said, I wrote down my gratitude. I do a lot of journaling in my head.
That works.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
works.
So, constantly, processing and thinking. I try periodically to start journaling again. I should journal. I should journal. And so, but just feeling it and processing it and having no judgment on yourself. Like
Mhm.
it's okay to be where you are,
Mm,
but then to recognize that and how do I get into kind of a powerful state of living.
that's that is such wise counsel for
Yeah.
anybody, right?
Right. Absolutely.
'Cause we're gonna have good days and bad, and when you have those bad days, process it.
Right.
However you do, whether it's talking with a friend, writing it out, writing it in
Mhm.
your brain, or whatever you do,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
but give yourself that time to process it.
absolutely.
Don't
Yes.
just sweep those feelings under the
Right.
rug,
No.
but
And it's more than just like I've locked the bathroom door for 2 minutes. I'm going to think about this. No, like intentional time, whether it's on a walk or you purposefully go to school 15 minutes early to sit in the drive up line. So, like, you just have quiet time, but making it a purposeful time for yourself.
I love that, taking that
Yeah.
quiet time for you
Hmm.
without the social media on, like,
Right,
quiet
right. One of
interest.
my yeah, one of my favorite things to do, and I'll post a picture on my Facebook page, is if I'm at a meeting or something late and I get home and I know that the family is in bed or whatever, I'll just sit in the car. Like, I just sit in the car in the dark, and
Uh-huh.
I'm like, "It is quiet, there's no one around me, there's no music on, and I'm just gonna sit here."
Yeah,
And enjoy it. And so, yeah.
yeah.
So I frequently post pictures of that, just hanging out in my car again.
But that's you time, and so wherever you
Yes.
find that you time, I know I
Mhm.
have intentionally started getting up early
Oh,
to
yeah.
plan my day and spend some time, praying and reading my scriptures and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and it has become, like, my favorite time of day because
Yeah.
nobody else is up at 5:10 in the morning in my house,
Right.
and it just gives me that quiet me time where I can
Mhm.
think. And so
You would think.
I think we need more of this in our lives, don't
We do,
you know?
we do. Yeah. As life gets crazier, you need more and more quiet time.
Yeah, so you need to create that. So
Create
let's
it.
just say, yeah,
Mhm.
create that quiet time where you can process all this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Love it, love it.
Yes. Yeah.
What else would you suggest? What
Yeah,
other
my second tip is really go out there and find the experts
Mm,
in your child's condition, like whatever resources you need, like go out there and find it because there will be someone who can help you. Sometimes it takes some time and some looking and prodding and asking, but there will be someone out there who knows somebody or that can help you and then really really utilize their knowledge.
mm,
Like I'm struggling with this aspect of what's going on in my family. Who can I find? And just start asking people.
mm,
And it might be another mother. It's like,
mhm.
hey, you know what? I went out with some moms one night and we all had this massive conversation around how our kids, are horrible sleepers. Mine
Oh,
happens to
wow.
be horrible and that my child does get up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm,
And I wish they would sleep in, but another mom was like, oh my gosh, this and that. And it was nice to like, okay, someone else has a similar situation, but then the ideas that came out of there were invaluable. So
mhm,
that's why I say if it's another mother, if it's another, if it's some sort of OT or PT or some sort of physician, we have tuberous sclerosis doctors in Cincinnati that we fly down there and we call them. But it's really like going after who can help you and
mhm,
then really utilizing their knowledge because like when you found somebody that can help you, and you're
mhm.
like, okay, this is gold. This is gold. We're going to keep that. You also know when you found somebody who isn't going to help you very much. But when
Yeah,
you find it, it's gold and you run with it.
yeah. Well, and don't you think I know that several times in my life, I've come up to a situation and I'm like, "Dear God, I really don't know how to solve this." You
Mhm.
know? And
Mhm.
God often answers those prayers through other
Mhm.
people, whether
Right.
it is that expert that gives
Yeah.
you, "Oh, that's the
That's the
answer to that
thing.
problem," or it's
Yeah.
a friend saying, "Hey, this is what we did." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, that might,"
Hmm.
you know?
That's it. Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but that's also like if we go back to tip number 1, that's staying in the powerful mindset,
Mhm. Yeah.
where just things are open and will flow to you.
Mhm.
And, staying out of, I like to call it the rabbit hole,
Stay
but
out of the rabbit hole.
stay out of the rabbit hole because that hole
Yes.
could get very deep. So,
Oh, that's beautiful. No, that's
yeah.
fantastic. Find
Yeah.
find your support group wherever they are.
Mhm.
But, in fact, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the support groups that you specifically have
Mhm.
used, and also tell us about the support group you're creating?
Yes, yeah. So that's kind of my third tip is like just know that you are not alone. There's
Mhm.
so many people that feel like I'm just out here alone. I'm like, well,
Mhm.
it's okay for you to reach out to somebody too.
Mhm.
And so for us, tuberous sclerosis, very few, 1 in 6,000 people. Well, as it happens, there happens to be 6 other families within a 30-mile radius of me
Wow.
whose children also have tuberous sclerosis.
What are the that's amazing.
Right. It is. And we had went to a tuberous sclerosis lunch that was put on and we looked at this one couple and we looked at the kid and they said, "What are you doing here?" And we said, "What are you doing here?" Our sons were on the same adapted baseball team
Oh my
and
heck.
we had no idea that they
Wow.
both had tuberous sclerosis. So
Wow.
yeah, so that was very cool. And there are two really great autism associations here in Nebraska. We live in Iowa, but very close to Nebraska.
Mhm.
And there are some amazing autism associations and support groups who have such wonderful events. And I've honestly like met some of the greatest women
Mhm.
through that and other families. And so it's very easy for, like, me to wanna just stay in my house. But
Right?
yeah, I was like, "You know what? We're gonna get out, we're gonna meet some other families." And so these are moms too that I can rely on or I can share things with. And we know that when we go to events, everybody has each other's backs.
Mhm.
And so it's been really cool. And then we have created what's called Dexter's Dream Foundation.
Ooh,
So we have an official nonprofit foundation now.
that's awesome. Tell us
Yeah.
about your nonprofit.
Yes, yeah. So it was a long time in the works. We knew we wanted to do something, but we couldn't figure it out. And finally, last it was almost a year ago now, we were like, you know what? We want Dexter's Dream Foundation to help provide experiences for families of special needs children.
Oh, amazing.
And and so that's what we've really sought out to do. We have a gal whose her organization has come in under our nonprofit, and she provides dinners, free dinners for families with special needs children, and entertainment as a chance for the families to come in and sit down and have a meal in a no judgment zone.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So, and then we do 6 to 8 times a year, we do a sensory friendly movie. And I
Oh,
know that some of the theaters are doing sensory friendly movies, but we as a Dexter's Dream Foundation, we buy out the entire theater
oh my god.
and we offer this as free to the families.
Oh, how amazing.
Yeah, and it's sensory friendly, so the lights are out, the sound is down. No one gives a hoot if your kid's out there dancing or sitting or whatever. The movie theater around here has been fantastic to work with, and just to see the joy on families' faces and to hear them say, "You know what? We've never been to a movie together."
Wow.
Yeah, it really just gives me the goosebumps for that. And then this summer, we also started a bowling league.
Look at you, girl.
So, yes, we're going. And we had 15 families in
Wow.
July, and it was the child with special needs as well as the siblings. So we had 7 lanes
Brilliant.
families bowling, and us as parents, we would stand around and talk and help the kids, and they just had a great time. And then actually just yesterday was the first time for our fall league.
Oh,
So
how
it's,
fun.
it's one of those things where we were going out, 30 minutes away to all these events that I dearly loved, and I just thought, you know what, there are families right around me
Mhm.
that we could create these events, we could have these events, and I could create like a little local support family also. And so many of them didn't have a local network around them either. So we are starting to kind of create and develop this
Oh, that's
local
fantastic.
network around here. So yeah, super excited about it.
So you're not alone and find your support groups. If you can't find one, make one,
Make
right?
one, absolutely. Yeah, I just the other day I said, you know what? Honestly, it really just starts with a smile and a hello.
Mhm. Yeah, it
So many
absolutely
times we're just afraid to even do that.
yeah.
Hmm.
So be brave.
Be brave.
You can do it, right?
Yeah, you don't have to be alone. You can go out there and find people. Hmm.
Oh, fantastic. Have you found any Bible verses that are meaningful to you in your journey?
Yes, yeah, and it's we actually had this Bible verse on our wedding invitation.
Really?
Yeah,
Do tell
yeah,
us.
and so it's 1 Corinthians 13 verses 4 through 5 that says, "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no records of wrongs."
Ooh.
And had no impact that, because I can age myself 18 years later,
Mhm.
to really see the impact of that Bible verse on our lives today
Mhm.
and how it's really just carried everything forward for us.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You've learned to love in a way that you probably never imagined you would, right?
Never imagined it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing,
Mhm.
fantastic.
Mhm.
Wendy, Are there any websites or books that you would recommend to our listeners today?
Yeah, so I have a website myself, and
Yes,
then we'll
please
get to
tell us.
that.
Let's
Yeah.
let's start with you. Let's start with
So,
you.
yeah, it's Wendy Andersen Presents. In that I do blogging on there, provide additional information, going to start some videos. And that's where the Redefining Normal mini book, you can also find that via there. I highly recommend a gentleman by the name of David Bayer, and he has Mind Hack.
Tell us
And
about Mind Hack.
yeah, so I am actually a facilitator coach of that program for Mind Hack. And that's what's really like, it is what it says, like, let's hack the mind.
Hmm.
And that's where a lot of this mindset stuff that I talk about comes from and is developed for. But it's really, our mind is a very complicated thing, but it can also be very simple.
Mhm.
And we can learn to hack our mind, to change our beliefs, to adjust our thoughts. There's so much science behind this that he's been able to break down to practical knowledge.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
amazing.
It,
So,
it, it's been,
Mind Hack by David Bayer.
yeah, yes, it's been life transforming for, my husband and I, and even as we start to teach our children these things too.
Yeah, that you can
Yeah,
choose.
you would choose.
It
Hmm.
kind of goes back to that decision you made in the
Yeah,
hospital, right?
yeah. And ultimately beliefs are decisions, and
Mm,
we make decisions all day long.
yeah. Oh, that sounds
Hmm.
like a great book. Now, there was a
Yeah.
couple of other books you wanted to recommend, so
Yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead and
there's
tell
a
us
book.
about those.
Yeah, there's another mindset book by the name of a gal, Carol Dweck, which
Mhm.
is again, it's a nice foundational mindset book, kind of teaching you how you think about things.
Mm,
Yeah, and then a gal who she's been around for a while, but even more up and coming and starting a daytime TV show actually is Mel Robbins.
mm,
And again, mindset, but just so practical and straightforward. So I think these are great resources and great places to start to learn this, because really once you grasp it, it is life transformational.
mm.
So yeah.
Well, and I think that it helps people realize that you can choose how you react in
Hmm.
life, you know?
Yes.
And so many people I've met, and I think this is common not only in the special needs community, but in also any community where people have been victimized. You know,
Hmm.
some people get stuck in that victim mentality and can't bust out.
Hmm.
And so it really, these books, it sounds like, are just things to help you realize you choose, you can choose,
You
right?
choose. Yep. Yeah. And beliefs are decisions, and you decide. I mean, you've already made 1,000 decisions today. You can
That's
make
true.
another one.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Another positive one then.
Hmm. Yes. Yes.
Awesome. One last question for you, Wendy. Well, actually, two. Well, we'll
That's
see.
okay.
But let me think of how I can best phrase this. I'm going to have to clip this part out. But how has God gotten you through everything that you've been through up to this point in your life?
Yeah. When I think back to it all, it's very simple. But it's just the fact that I know that He's always there for me. And God isn't going to put me in any situation He doesn't want me to be in.
Hmm.
And that also provides the strength and the guidance and the power that I need to
Mhm.
go through anything.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Any final tips before we sign off?
Mm. I always go back to just redefine normal, and
Mm,
it's really it truly is like, throw the concept of that yardstick with the numbers on it of what normal is out the window, and just redefine normal for you, because it's so freeing. once you do understand that your life and your family is normal.
Awesome. I couldn't have said it better myself. We have been talking to Wendy Andersen. Wendy, thank you for your generosity in sharing so many amazing tips and tricks and the power of choice with us today.
Yes, thank you.
Today's podcast was sponsored by Daily Essential Nutrients by Hardy Nutritionals. Go check them out at gethardy.com to see how micronutrient vitamins can help you like they've helped me and my family. Also, don't forget to use the code HOPE10 to get a 10% discount available specifically for my listeners. That's gethardy.com. Hey, thanks so much for listening to today's show. I know that there are many of you out there that are going through a hard time, and I hope you found things that have been useful today as you listened to the podcast. If you would like to access the show notes from today's podcast, visit my website. It is storiesofhopepodcast.com. That is where you'll find favorite quotes from today's episode and shareable memes. And those are fun because you can share them with your friends on social media. You will also find the links mentioned throughout today's episode, so you don't have to remember what those were. And also all the tips that were shared. Sometimes tips are shared so much throughout an episode you forget. What were those great things? So go to the show notes, storiesofhopepodcast.com, to look up these fantastic resources. You know, if someone kept coming to mind during today's episode, perhaps that means that you should share this with them. Maybe there was a story shared or a tip that they really, really need to hear. So go ahead and share this episode with them. May God bless you, especially if you are struggling, with hope to carry on and with the strength to keep going when things get tough. Remember to walk with Christ, and He will help bear that burden. Above all else, remember, God loves you.